now calling this meeting to order. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Roll call.
Roll call. Mugia.
Here.
Maddox.
Here.
Kane. Markley.
Here.
Walters. Philbrook.
Here.
Walker. Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Holland.
Here. Thank you very much, Ms. Cobbins. This evening, the invocation is being given by Reverend George Kemper of Ebenezer Ministries. I'd invite you to please stand for the prayer and to remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Shall we bow our heads? Lord, for me it is Jesus Christ. We observe this session during this Lenten season. If you have entrusted us, your stewards of your creation, please guide our hearts and our minds in this commission as they make decisions. We seek you first in all that we do, and we do it together. May we always be mindful of their service and our service to this community. We confess that we are nothing. We are of diverse opinion here. Please share a little of your wisdom with us and help us do the right thing by all concerned. Thank you for your heavenly blessing. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Kemper. We appreciate your being here tonight. Before we begin, I would like to recognize Bryce Bamer is here from Troop 522. He is a Boy Scout working on his citizenship in the community. Bryce, could you please stand so we can recognize you tonight? Welcome. Ms. Cobbins, are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
There are no revisions tonight.
That seems remarkable. I think this is my first meeting as mayor where there are no revisions. Let the record please note. I'll ask the clerk now to please read the statement for the governing planning and zoning meetings, followed by the items on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor Mark Holland, Commissioner Hal Walker at Large District 2, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Ann Mugia, District 3, Commissioner Terrence Maddox, District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has three options. Number one, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. Number two, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. And number three, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration, together with the statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the Planning and Zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote or recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item on the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to be set aside from the consent agenda. This is your time to stand up and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioners make their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 5 minutes to state your views. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. The mayor and the commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda. I will ask if any members of the commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item on the agenda.
Commissioner McKiernan.
I've had contact with proponents of SP 2014-17.
Commissioner Murguia.
Thank you, Mayor. I've had contact with proponents of number 3064.
I have also have a disclosure. I've had contact with SP 2014-17 as well.
I've had a contact with the proponent of SP 2014-9.
Commissioner Philbrook.
I've had multiple conversations on the non-consent agenda item.
Thank you. Anyone else? Like the record show, I see no further disclosures.
I will now read the consent agenda. Change of zone application item number 1, 3064 Robert Diamond Jr. Change of zone from C1 Limited Business District to TND Traditional Neighborhood Design District for a mixed-use development at 4458 State Line Road, recommended for approval. Item 2, Mark Pomeranke. Change of zone from AG Agricultural District to R5 Apartment District for a 309 apartment complex at 11501 Parallel Parkway, recommended for approval to RP5 Plant Apartment District. Special use permit application item number 1, SP 2014-4, James Schlussler. Special use permit for electronic message sign for Faith City Christian Church at 2500 South 44th Street, recommended for approval. Item 2, SP 2014-7, Ross Jensen. Special use permit for electronic message sign for Save-A-Lot Grocery Store at 2102 Metropolitan Avenue, recommended for approval. Item 3, SP 2014-9, John Peterson. Special use permit for a dirt fill at 99 North 61st Street, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 4, SP 2014-12, Von Vizel Desire. Renewal of a special use permit for the temporary use of the land of temporary storage shed at 735 Walker Avenue, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 5, SP 2014-15, Ramona Cook. Special use permit for the temporary use of land for a construction trailer at 9 North Cherokee Street, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 6, SP 2014-16, Cecilia Toscano with El Prado Bar and Grill. Special use permit for live entertainment on weekends and holidays at 4752 State Avenue, recommended for approval for 2 years. Plan review applications, item 1, PR 2014-5, E.M. McDonald and Posanelli PC. Preliminary and final plan review for Garden Style Senior Living Apartment Complex at 1333 South 27th Street and 1324 through 2334 South 26th Street, recommended for approval. Item 2, PR 2014-6, David Contag. Preliminary and final plan review for a new school building at 5340 Oak Grove Road, recommended for approval. Item 3, PR 2014-8, Neil Nordwitz with Thurlson Hospitality. Preliminary and final plan review for a 113-unit resident inn at 1875 Village West Parkway, recommended for approval. Item 4, PR 2014-9, Brad Sooner. Preliminary and final plan review for retail development at 1703 and 1801 Village West Parkway, recommended for approval. Master Plan Amendments, Item 1, MP 2014-1, Ian McDonald with Posinelli, Master Plan Amendment for Low-Density Residential to Medium-Density Residential at 1333 South 27th Street, recommended for approval. Item 2, MP 2014-2, Mark Pomeranke, Master Plan Amendment from Planned Mixed Business Park Commercial to High-Density Residential at 11501 Parallel Parkway, recommended for approval. Miscellaneous. 2 ordinances. Item number 1 is an ordinance rezoning property at 4116 Metropolitan Avenue from C1 Limited Business District to CP2 Planned General Business. And item 2, an ordinance rezoning property at 10118 Hutton Road from AG Agricultural District to R1 Single Family District. Those are all items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. I'd like to ask now, does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the planning and zoning consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the planning and zoning consent agenda will be voted on by one vote to follow the recommendation of the Planning Commission. Commissioner Murguia.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'd like to set aside the change of zone petition for number 3064. I believe it's the first item on the consent agenda. And then, Mayor, just for the public record, I will be recusing myself from the consent agenda vote in entirety as I have a conflict with the application number 140084 that involves Ian McDonald with Posinelli Law Firm and the Simmons Villa property.
Thank you. That is noted in the record.
I'm gonna pull that aside,
You would like to pull item C1?
set it aside, because I'll have to recuse myself as well.
Okay, that item is set aside.
Mayor, I'll stay for full consent.
Okay, with that item pulled aside, item C1, and I presume that includes item D1?
Get to it here. Yeah,
Those go together.
yes, they do.
So we will set aside items C1 and D1. Are there any other items to be set aside by the commission? None, sir. Would you like to set something aside?
Yes, if we could set aside PR 2014-8 and 2014-9, they're both tied together as well.
Okay, they are set aside. Those are items C, 3, and 4. Are there any others? Let the record show there's no one else moving to the podium and no other commissioners.
Second.
There's been a motion second for the remaining items. Seeing no conversation, roll call.
Roll call. Muggia.
Aye.
Maddox.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
That motion passed 9-0.
Thank you. That brings us to item A1 that has been set aside. I'm going to ask the applicant to please come forward.
My name's Robert Diamond Jr. I'm the applicant for number 3064. And we would like to request that the condition be deleted from this petition.
Okay, so it was is recommended for approval with a,
The condition is
With the condition.
subject to the applicant working with the staff concerning architectural design of the building. We've met with the staff and the commissioner and discussed.
can you please speak up a little bit? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we had a discussion with the planning staff and the commissioner about this item, and we'd like to move forward again with this condition being deleted from the petition.
Okay. Commissioner Murguia.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me help Mr. Diamond and his client here. I think they're new to the government process. They are very grateful for all the hard work that our staff has done, and our staff, they have complimented over and over again how easy it was to work with our staff. However, there seems to be just a difference in design style. Mr. Diamond's clients are fans of very contemporary architecture, as you can see on the above slide on the wall. As you can see, where they're putting that very contemporary architecture is in a very older urban neighborhood. They are trying to go through this process through our fairly new narrow lot guidelines, and I think they've overall had a positive experience. As the commissioner for this district, I have not heard any complaints or concerns about the current style of this. I guess you would call it, it'd be office space on the bottom and it'd be living quarters on the top. So I haven't heard any complaints from the neighbors. I know they've done incredible outreach. They have a couple of letters of endorsement from the neighborhood group. And considering, I believe this is a 25-foot front lot, is that correct?
40 feet
40, but the width of this structure is how?
is 18 feet.
Its structure is only 18 feet wide, to give you an idea, and their level of financial investment in this property will exceed $500,000. So given that level of quality, it just seems to me to boil down to personal preference. So I'd like to make a motion that the staff has done an outstanding job. We allow them to move forward with the structure as designed.
Second.
Okay, I'd like to ask for a staff response, please.
Well, I think we need to have a public hearing since it's been taken off the agenda before the motions.
That's correct.
And it would be, and to change as you know, to change the planning commission recommendation, it would take 8 votes.
Sure. So I think we will open up for a public hearing. I would like to ask staff, in anticipation of that, to describe your position on this architecture.
I think that Commissioner McGee had explained that very accurately. This is a very modern structure in an older neighborhood, and the Planning Commission recommendation was that they work with us, not to change the shape of the building, just to change how the building is treated so that it would fit better with the neighborhood.
Okay, and do you believe that's happened?
We have not, there's been no changes since the Planning Commission. This is what was approved by the Planning Commission, subject to changes working with the staff that you see on the screen tonight.
Okay. Thank you. So in terms of the public hearing, I would now open the floor. If there's anyone who would like to here tonight who would like to speak in favor of this proposal, would you please step forward at this time? Let the record show I see no one moving to the podium. Yes, ma'am?
I'd like to speak in favor of it.
Okay.
I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Kathleen Van Beesler, and I live at 5010 West 67th, Prairie Village, Kansas. I'm the owner of the property and the 4458 State Line project. Bob Diamond is our architect, and Matt Van Beesler, who's beside me, is my husband. I'm also the owner of the business, Artwork Studio. We'll be relocating when the building is complete to the ground floor. We are commercial interior designers and art consultants, and we'll be occupying the ground floor, and then we plan to have 2 apartments above and a studio below. We're very excited to move to the neighborhood, and like has been stated, it will be a significant investment. It's a quality structure, and we've put a considerable amount of time and energy into the design and working with feedback from several avenues, and we are eager to move forward with it in its current condition. It reflects my business's image, as well as we think something moving forward. I mean, a forward-looking building. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the project at this time? Let the record show I see no one else moving to the podium. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this project? Let the record show I see no one present today speaking in opposition to the project. We will now close the public hearing. and we will open it for discussion. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you. I just had one.
Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you. Is the depiction that we're talking about the one there that the proponents are recommending, or is this picture with amendments what the city's recommending?
This is as we're proposing it.
Thank you.
Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you. So let me get this straight. In terms of the actual structure of the building, it'll conform to all codes in terms of its height and its construction principles. We're really just looking at the fascia of the building as compared to some of the other shops and streets. If I'm familiar with this, and I think I am, because isn't Savart right across the street? This is a kind of a funky little eclectic area. And so I would think that as long as they comply with all building codes and structural, and you've had communication with the neighbors, you've had a public meeting on this.
Correct.
I have letters of recommendation for the project from the Neighborhood Association, the Rosedale Development, and I've spoken with Mike Savage numerous times.
But how about those, yeah, so
They're
you've
all in
spoken,
favor, and also...
you've spoken with Mike, and you've spoken with other immediate neighbors.
And the Startup Village, Matthew Marcus, he's our immediate neighbor. He has written a letter of support for the project in its current condition. Design.
Given the kind of eclectic, funky feel of this whole neighborhood, it would seem to me that would fit right in.
Okay.
So, Mayor, do you want me to remake that motion?
Please.
Okay. So, I would recommend for approval as the applicant originally proposed without making modifications to the architectural design.
Second.
Okay. So it has been moved and seconded. Is there any further dialogue on the issue? And just to clarify, because this would be a change from the Planning and Zoning Commission, it would require 8 votes in order to pass. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm seeing no further comments. Is there a summative comment that the applicants would like to make prior to the vote? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Roll call.
Roll call. Mugia.
Aye.
Maddox.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion passed.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
That brings us to item C1. And it accompany, actually, yes, we'll go ahead with C1 and D1, and then we'll come back to C3 and 4. So item C1 is a development on South 26th Street. Commissioner, let the record show Commissioner Murguia and Commissioner Walker are recusing themselves for these 2 items. Is there any discussion on either of these 2 items?
Move for approval.
Second.
C1 has been moved and seconded. It has been removed from, I'm sorry, actually I called for a motion, and because it's been removed from consent, we do need to open it up to a public hearing. So this item is now before us in a public hearing. If there's anyone here tonight who would like to speak in favor of this proposal, will you please step forward at this time? Let the record show I see no one moving forward to the podium. Was there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to speak in opposition to this item? Let the record show there is no one moving forward to speak in opposition. I will now close the public hearing.
Move for approval, second.
Second.
It is properly moved and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call. Maddox.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Walters. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 7-0. That motion passed.
That brings us to item D1. I will now open a public hearing for D1. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Let the record show I see no one moving forward. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this proposal? Let the record show no one is moving forward to speak in opposition. This item, the public hearing is closed. This item is before us.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call, Maddox.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 7-0. That motion passed.
Thank you. All right. We will now have before us items C3 and 4. And we'll start with item C3. Preliminary and final plan review for 113-unit residence in. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Bart Lowen, Red Legacy, 4717 Central. I'm not sure if item 3 or item 4 is the one I should be proposing, but since they're tied together, I'll just move forward. With me tonight is Dave Floodman with Thorlson Hospitality, who's going to build the Residence Inn Hotel. Chuck Oglesby, who is our managing partner in our asset management arm of Red Legacy. He also was a former general manager at the Legends Project. And Brad Sonner with Olson Associates, who's our civil engineer on the project. I know your meeting's short tonight. I'll try and keep it short as well. In short, we concur with staff's recommendations to move forward with the approval. The only item that we'd like to discuss further or maybe have a little bit of leniency on is item 2C of the staff stipulations, which is to have all of the 200 stalls available prior to the issuance of a building permit for the hotel. We do understand that there is a parking need on the west end of the Legend Shopping Center, and again, want to get the 200 spaces built. They're going to be replaced for the hotel, and we'll build those 200 spaces, and what's shown is the green area above the yellow outline in the site plan that you see on the screen. What we are proposing to do today in order to get the hotel started is provide 113 temporary spaces in the triangular portion of that yellow boundary. And I've got a plan here I can pass out if you guys would like to see that. But 113 spaces of the approximate 200 that would be displaced. That 87 spaces, approximately 87 spaces that we are short, equates to about 2.5% of the total parking in the shopping center. It's about 3,600 spaces in the shopping center bounded by the public streets. These 90 stalls, give or take, is 2.5%. One of their staff stipulations was to get the employees in the shopping center up to the top of the garage and also to the parking area behind TJ Maxx in the northeast corner of the project. We couldn't agree more. Chuck's here tonight and can talk to you more about how that plan is going to take place immediately. Moving the employees to the top level of the garage, just alone, there's more than 300 employees in the project today. There's 300 spaces at the top of that garage. If you were to drive by the project today and go to the top of the garage, I think we'd all notice that garage is not getting utilized. So if we move the employees to the top of the garage, like we anticipate doing immediately, that frees up 300 spaces, surface spaces within the project. I do understand they're not right adjacent to the west end of the project, but clearly 300 spaces in the project coupled with 113 that we want to provide immediately as the hotel starts, we feel is a good number. We also, and Chuck can talk about this as well, we also have valet opportunities at the Yard House Restaurant, which clearly is the key restaurant on the west end of the project and is going to want to make sure that parking is available. So when the parking demand is there, consumer needs a parking space, we'll have valet opportunity for them. So they won't even have to find the stalls, even though there's 113 that are immediately adjacent to the restaurant, that will be available for them. So in short, that is our proposal. We'd like to build 113 spaces temporarily today on the hotel pad site. We'd like to start immediately with the construction of the, after staff approval, of course, of the 200 spaces north of on lot 33, north of the hotel. And in short, get the hotel started, give them a building permit and let them get started. Dave can talk to where he's at in his process of his plan reviews, code reviews and whatnot. I believe he's within days in a position to start the construction of that hotel, and we'd just like to get that going. We're here to help answer any questions that you might have.
All right, before we take questions and open up the public hearing, I do want to hear from staff in terms of your view on the proposal in terms of the number of spaces.
Thank you, Mayor. The parking lot that you can see on the screen that's actually already developed, not including the gravel area, is about 230 spaces. So that's just a little bit, that doesn't include all the area outlined in yellow there. Brad's going to zoom in there for us. And then they're proposing over 100 spaces to be put in a temporary basis in the triangle piece of the yellow outline that you're seeing there, while they build the permanent spaces above, north of the yellow line. And they've committed to having those done by the time the hotel opens. But in the interim, you would just have the 113 spaces there in the triangle. What I have proposed to them to, because the hotel is within a few days of getting their building permit, they're going through the process now. But what I've proposed that they would do, the 113 spaces that they have proposed, and extend that to the north into that green area to get 200 spaces, build out the rest of the parking lot to the north, and when that is done, then do the rest of the lot so that we would maintain that 200 plus spaces throughout the construction phase so that the parking in that area wouldn't be disrupted. The staff parking that they discussed, if you've been out to the Legends, there's a blue line in the parking lot and the staff's supposed to park beyond that. There's no blue line in this part of the parking lot, so I don't think that this is a staff parking lot, but they could tell me otherwise about that. But there's no blue line in this lot like there is in the rest of it. We're very concerned, and Planning Commission expressed concern about the impact on what is probably our county's most popular restaurant. If it's not number one, it's darn close. And we think that we should maintain the 200 plus level of parking places there adjacent to the west end of the center throughout the construction. It will mean that they spend more in construction because they'll have to do it in phases instead of in one fell swoop. But you know, the Planning Commission thought that was a worthwhile effort.
So the Planning Commission approved it with this parking that you've proposed?
Well, they wanted 200 spaces in place before the hotel building permit was issued. They had anticipated that being all of the spaces in the green area being completed, but I think it would meet the spirit of what they wanted if we did it in phases, with some of it temporary while they built the permanent, and then took the temporary parking out in phases to maintain the 200 spaces and get the hotel going. I don't think that would be contrary to their recommendation.
Okay. All right, I'm going to open up the public hearing at this point. And I need to ask legal, is it possible, because these two are tied together, to do one public hearing for both items C3 and C4, or do we need a separate public hearing for each?
Yeah, they are tied together, and they were heard as one case at Planning Commission as well.
Okay, so we will have a public hearing. I will open it at this time and ask, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this proposal at this time to please step forward? Let the record show I see no one stepping forward to speak in favor. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this in the audience tonight? Would you please step forward to the microphone? Let the record show no one is stepping forward in opposition. We will now close the public hearing, and I'll open it to commission questions and comments. Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mayor. So let me check my math here. We've got 230 available spots in this proximity, in this vicinity right now.
Correct.
Their proposal would result in a net loss of 117 of those spots, from 230 down to 113, correct?
Correct.
Your proposal would result in a net loss of only 30 spots in the short run while we get back up. So I'll just tell you, it seems crazy to me that we want to lose spots and make it harder for people to park in an area where sales tax is helping to pay off the bonds. It just doesn't make sense to me that we want to make it harder for people to, because I can tell you, I frequent the west side of that area fairly often, and it's impossible now to get a spot. Why do we want to take over 100 spots away?
Thank you. Commissioner Walters.
I have a question for Rob. Is there anything in the presentation from the applicant that's different than what you had been talking with them before? The parking on the third level, the parking structure, or the temporary 100-something spaces? Is that all old information?
The parking on top of the parking structure was part of the Planning Commission recommendation. So that is part of this approval, would be require employee parking to be on the third level of the parking garage or in the corner, northeast corner of the development behind TJ Maxx. So that was part of that. That's been ongoing. They have been proposing some number of temporary spaces in that triangular area since briefly before the Planning Commission meeting, so that's not new either. It's about 20 more than they proposed to Planning Commission, but that's...
Well, I too am concerned about parking, and I wonder, did construction worker parking come up in any of the discussions on the overall needs of parking during construction?
No, typically that would be inside the fenced-off area for construction. And they do have some lots, you know, during this construction period when the T-Bones weren't playing, they could probably have them park across the street. I don't know if that's proximate enough to be customer parking, but they could send them, the construction workers across the street into the T-Bone. They own some parking area over the T-Bones area.
Well, it is my experience that construction worker parking is just one more burden in an area that's already tough to park. It's difficult to control all construction workers, and it's just, you know, one more element of parking that needs to be addressed. I'll cut my comments off.
Oh, I'm
at that.
sorry. I was looking at Commissioner Kane. I was not referring to your comment. I would say as a regular at the Yard House, and one of the biggest joys and complaints I get about the Legends is you can't find a place to park. Now, I love that because the place is absolutely packed. It's a quality establishment. People want to shop there. They want to go to restaurants there. This is a great attraction, regional attraction for our whole city that's driving property and sales tax for our community. I mean, this is a big win. What I don't want is an already stressed parking situation to become an increasingly stressed parking situation where people say, forget it, we'd love to go to the Legends, but you can't find a place to park. I think that would be a major loss as that word trickles out. The other thing I would ask Mr. Richardson, would it be possible on that northern green space, the North 40 if you would it be possible for them to put down a very temporary 2 inches of asphalt and stripe it rather than completely building out the parking lot that would allow it to be up and usable immediately so it wouldn't slow down their construction schedule, and then they could come back after the completion and build in the more permanent what they want to do? Because my hope too is that corner that North 40 seems to be a pretty developable piece of land that I would like to see development continue on, and I think that's the goal for the development as well, is to continue to develop that. Is there a way that we could do, I mean, I don't want it to be gravel. I mean, I think that's not the caliber that we want, but is there a way to do a more temporary, more cost-effective parking that's striped and asphalted that could get us through the construction season, and then they could move to a more permanent?
I believe that's what I was proposing when I said do the triangular area and then go north to do the 200. It wouldn't be that far west. I mean, it probably wouldn't take half of that green area to do that. They could build out the rest of that. And then at some point they need the temporary stuff within the yellow area because they'll have to finish it for the hotel. So if they do enough temporary between the triangular area and the east end of the North 40, they could build out the rest of that per code and then take the rest of it down, and we would maintain the number of parking spaces throughout the construction process. So that's really what you're saying, what I'm saying, I think are the same thing.
I think that's a goal, because I know a finished parking lot includes medians, it includes landscaping, it includes a lot of amenities that we expect in our parking area. I would be fine not having that during the construction phase, and I think frankly it'd be a waste of money to invest in curbs and planters and that kind of thing while it's a temporary parking. But I think retaining the customer-friendly message that there's plenty of room to park and we want everybody to come spend your money here. And by the way, I want to repeat that. I want everybody to come spend your money here. That I don't want to have anything to dampen that. So I think your proposal, and I think the proposal of the planning and zoning is right on, that we need to protect these parking spaces. Commissioner Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. And I agree with Commissioner Walters. The truth of those people that work out there, if it's bad weather, they're not going to park up on the roof. And those of us that work in construction field, we're going to get as close to the job as we can. And we're going to take those parking spots. And somebody might tell us you can't do it, but we're going to take them anyway. So I'd like to make a motion to uphold what the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended, along with what the mayor said and Rob, which I guess is all the same thing.
Second.
All right, so the plan is moved and seconded for approval as stated. And do we need to take both of these as separate items? I'll ask the legal staff. Or can we do a single vote?
They were a single vote at Planning Commission as well.
Okay, so we'll take items C, 3, and 4 together as a single vote. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Roll call, Mukia.
Aye.
Maddox.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Barkley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion passed.
All right, that concludes the items that were on the consent agenda. It brings us to one additional item on the planning and zoning agenda. It is the only non-consent agenda item. It is SP 2014-17, presented by Randy Kallstrom. This passed the planning and zoning on a 7-3 vote. I would invite the applicant to come forward at this time. Mr. Kallstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. In 2007, the Sheriff's Office began operating the Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center for children who are in police protective custody due to allegations of abuse or neglect by their parent and/or guardian. They quickly discovered there was no place for these children to stay for the 72 hours before they would either be returned home or the judge would place the children into foster care. So in 2008, PACES was the only agency that responded to a request for proposal sent out by the unified government to provide shelter for these children. Since 2008, we have been providing this care for these children. Our current facility is on North 12th Street. It's 4 beds as a maximum, as licensed by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, which means it's very small. In each year, we are not able to meet the needs of the kids that are coming into custody and into police protective custody. Last year, we turned away over 100 children that needed this care. When no shelter is available or foster home is available for these children, the Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center staff have to look within a 150-mile square radius to find a home, sometimes driving kids as far away as Wichita Junction City. When no place is located, children spend the night on a cot at the jail. Not in the jail, but at the Sheriff's Office in Juvenile Intake. Our request tonight is for a special use permit for a proposed home that is yet to be built near 59th and Nogard on property that was in the land bank, currently still is in the land bank, but was deeded to us by the commission in February. This home for these children would be licensed by Kansas Department of Health and Environment as an emergency shelter, serve children aged 3 to 17, a maximum of 3 days stay, with a capacity to provide shelter for up to 10 children. I want to clarify that this is not 10 children that would be living there on a permanent basis. These are children that are there for a maximum of 3 business days and up to 10 children, because oftentimes we may not have any children in the shelter. Sometimes we may have 2 to 5, but when a larger sibling group comes into care or it's just a bad week, we want to have the capacity to keep all of our Wyandotte County children in their community and mitigate any disruption to siblings being able to stay together and mitigate the trauma of these children that they are experiencing. Our staff work in 8-hour shifts, so we are always awake at all times. While KDHE requires a 1-to-7 ratio, we would operate on a 1-to-5. So if we had more than 5 children, we would always have 2 trained staff on site. And these staff are trained by state requirements for attendant care and respite. We train them in safe crisis management, so if children are having any difficulties, our staff are well trained in how to de-escalate children, as well as how to deal with children who have experienced trauma. The site that was chosen for this proposed home is because we wanted it to be a home. If it was my child, my grandchild, my neighbor's child that needed to go into care for 3 days, I would want them to go into a home and not something that looked like a hospital or some kind of institution. And that's what we think our kids deserve. We talked to Chris Slaughter in the Land Bank. We looked at over 30 sites that was proposed, far and wide across the county. It was a priority that it blend into the neighborhood. All of our living quarters, bedrooms, kitchen, bathrooms need to be on the same floor for up to 10 children so that we have line of sight of supervision for these children, because we want to make sure that these kids are safe and well taken care for. So it needed to be on a plot of land big enough to accommodate such a structure. And there are certain neighborhoods that this type of structure would not blend in architecturally into the neighborhood. That was a strong consideration. We also wanted it to be easy access for the Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center staff. They operate oftentimes on a minimum staffing scale. We want to minimize the amount of time away from the Juvenile Intake Center by transporting kids or saving cost to the Sheriff's Department by the deputies having to transport these children. We also want to create as little disruption as possible to the neighborhood, and understanding that this will change the neighborhood and that there will be some anxiety that's created from this. The proposed land where we would build this site, however, would have no residential areas to the north. There is Thompson Park to the north. We would locate the shelter in the middle of the yellow section there so that the neighbor to the east would have 2.5 plots of land separating his house from where this house would be. Further to the west, there's a tree line, and then there is the dead end of 61st Terrace, so there's no residential homes to the west. There is houses to the south and a tree line that separates that, and we would build the home in such a way to preserve as many trees as possible, creating a natural barrier between our home and the houses behind us. Subsequently to this property being deeded to us, we have had neighborhood meetings, and several, as a matter of fact. We've gone door to door talking with neighbors. And as I said, we have created a little bit of anxiety. So I just want to take a minute to address some of those concerns that we've heard to this point. There is anxiety or fear that these children would create havoc in the neighborhood, break into homes, be running amok. I want to be very clear that these are not children who are in trouble with the law. These are not little criminals, as one neighbor put it. These are children who are in crisis and need care due to no fault of their own. Our backyard neighbor expressed a concern about neighborhood children today running through his yard and through the park area. We offered to build a privacy fence to help not only our children, but any children in the neighborhood from running through his yard. Noise was a factor. Our children tend to stay inside. They would stay inside. It would not be a disruption from these kids playing in the yard or disrupting the neighborhood in any way. Traffic. Typically, we would have 2 or 3 cars that are coming, either the Juvenile Intake Center staff or social workers coming to visit children. It's not going to create a huge traffic flow issue. Our current shelter on North 12th Street, we have had no complaints from neighbors. We've checked with the police department. We've had 0 calls in the last 6 years, complaints about anything occurring on our property there. A concern about real estate value was raised. In talking to officials within the unified government, I was told that it would not raise property taxes or affect the resale value of the homes because this would not be a like-size home and because we are a nonprofit and that would not be considered in those calculations. But we want to be a good neighbor. We have modified the designs of the home based on recommendations and feedback we received from neighbors. It's been a concern about expanding or building another structure on this site. We would not do that. And as the staff can assure you, to do that, we would have to come back to this commission, and I would expect that we would be denied at that time. So we'll save us all the trouble of that. A concern was about runaways. In the last 6 years, we've had 8 children who have ran away. That does happen occasionally, but not a lot. Those children have all ran home or to a friend's home. They've gotten away from the shelter. There was a concern raised about parents coming to the neighborhood to try and grab their children, even probably maybe bringing gunfire into the neighborhood. I cannot predict what would happen in the future. We've had no experiences in the 6 years. I've checked with the Division of Children and Families with the state. They're not aware of any such incidents occurring in Wyandotte County or Johnson County ever. We currently operate a mental health center in the Argentine area as well as on North 47th Street. We're not aware of any concerns with any of our kids who do have behavioral disorders causing any disruption because we train our staff well. We supervise them very well. We also think we can add to the neighborhood, not just detract from it. We would be more than willing to sit down and meet with any neighbor that had any specific concerns, address any reasonable consideration, work with law enforcement to address some of the concerns that have been raised regarding Thompson Park and the activities that may happen there. And I would be willing to go as far as any neighbor that wanted. I would be willing to give my personal cell phone. If there was a problem occurring at the shelter, they could call me, and I would make sure it got taken care of.
Thank you. Mr. Kallstrom, can you say a few words about PACES and the organization and the organizational structure of your organization?
Certainly. PACES is one of 4 organizations underneath the Wyandotte Inc. umbrella. We are the licensed community mental health center here in Wyandotte County. We have 2 components or 2 agencies of that. PACES is the Children's Community Mental Health Center. Wyandotte Center is the adult serving agency. We also have Kim Wilson Housing that provides alternative housing to people with disabilities, and City Vision, which is a community development organization.
Thank you.
And we've been here since 1953.
Since 1953, thank you. All right, I will now open up to a public hearing. If there is anyone in the audience tonight who would like to speak in favor of this proposal, I'd invite you to come forward at this time. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the Commission. Gordon Criswell from the County Administrator's Office. We are here to support the concept of an emergency shelter for children who are taken out of their home by law enforcement through no fault of their own. We strongly believe that a shelter of this type will help our law enforcement team better care for children who are taken out of their home. We also believe that there will be some savings from the transport of children across the state when they are already traumatized through no fault of their own. Many times these children have to be examined or interviewed by the district attorney's office, the clinical social workers, the pediatrician, to determine if they've actually been abused, neglected, or exploited. Having staff to transport a child that is in police custody to Wichita, go get them and bring them back to meet with the professionals that the child needs to meet with, and then take that child back to a shelter out of county. We think there's a better way to do this, and the concept of this emergency shelter is something that is supported by our office. It's also supported by the JCAB, the Juvenile Corrections Advisory Board. They have seen the need for this type of what I'd like to call is a continuum of services for children in our community, and we would support the Commission's effort to approve this special use permit. I'd stand for any questions if you have any.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Griswold. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Name and
Mayor
address for
Holland.
name and address for the record, please.
Mayor Holland, members of the commission, my name is Scott Robinson. I live at 2200 North 57th Terrace, which is a little bit east of Sligo High School. I've been there for 30 years. My home is a block east of Sligo, and during the school year, many times students walk through and around my property. Though I have been on the corner lots, and many of these students pass through on their way to school, and amazingly, just amazingly, my property value has not gone down, nor have my home been invaded by anything but termites. But on the serious note, I would like to share a story of two youths I have been involved with directly for the past 23 years. The first was Ted. He was in middle school when he came into my life. I came home from work and he was sitting on the corner, and I could tell something was wrong. When I inquired, he stated that his mother had died just days before, and his father was strung out on drugs. He had not been home since the funeral for his mother. He noticed that I had always spoke to him, and he hoped that I could help him. He was only 11 years old. He didn't know he was supposed to call the police. He just saw me as someone that maybe could help. And many of these children are that way. Ted became like a son over the years, and though his father is still using as far as I know, Ted has become a successful father, husband, and a tax-paying citizen. He now lives in other states, and he gives support to other children that, through no fault of their own, they also have problems that they are not equipped to handle. He shared with me the other day on the phone as I talked to him about this project. Thank God and you for so much help. I would like to talk to you about a second child for just a moment. The second child is from a family dear to my heart. She was an A student and at the top of her class at Sumner. She discovered her mother's drugs, and in a rage, her mother threw her out. The young girl was 15. She knew that I had a place in my heart for children of addicts, so she called, and I and my wife took her home and took her in. Today, that young girl is graduating from a college in Kansas with a 3.95. She's already been granted a scholarship to grad school. She will be helping freshmen with housing and how to succeed in college. Most likely, some of your sons or daughters or relatives from this very assembly will succeed in college because of her calling to pay it forward. That is just a glimpse of the lives that Safe House can save. Many that will be housed there are in need, like Ted and that young lady. For the average age of a homeless person in our community,
You have 1 minute, sir.
I'll take less. Shall we be a community that blames the victim, or go on being a community trying to give our children, yes, our children, a chance? Shall we invest in the seeds on our lawns, or plant seeds of hope? As for me and my house, I shall vote for hope and compassion. May God forgive those who value something else. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this proposal? I invite you to come forward at this time.
Evening. My name is Jeannie Beeves. I live at 6121 Cleveland, and I've lived there for 36 years. Until I got the little form from the gentleman that was putting them in the mailbox. I didn't know where Paces was putting their new building. I'd seen the architecture's drawing and everything. It looks beautiful. If you look at their building at 47th Street, off of State Avenue, that was a old, ratty
Dump.
place. It was just nasty.
Ma'am, it was a dump.
It was a dump. And look at it now. It has not harmed that neighborhood at all. It has impressed it. It's made it look better. It's not going to hurt anybody if they put that building there. And what people don't understand is that maybe you don't have a child that needs that help, but don't ever say never. Don't ever say, because that's when you're going to need that help for your child, your grandchild, a neighbor's child. So I just think voting against this would be so very, very wrong. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in favor?
My name is Gerald Wynn, 11110 Parkview Avenue. Thank you. I'm here today with my wife in a committee of several volunteers to tell you that this project represents the best of Wyandotte County, because there is an alliance of the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, public schools, case managers, mental health providers, all who've banded together to help children who desperately need help. Private industry is involved and has also joined this alliance and this partnership. And why? Because it's needed. We have children right now, through no fault of their own, who need police protective custody. Sometimes they have to be turned away in their moment of need. We think we can do better. We think we want to do better, and we're encouraging you to vote in favor of this project. This will make a difference. We know that what PACES does, what Wyandotte Center does, positively affects this community. We know this because I would bet that everyone in this room has been touched by something that Wyandotte Center has done. When the tornado hit western Wyandotte County, it was Wyandotte Center that went out there house to house to give people hope and to help them recover. When the school district was concerned about keeping kids in school and helping them deal with their discipline problems, PACES brought the services to the schools so that the students could stay there, so that their parents wouldn't have to leave work, and so that the children could be helped. And it worked. Teachers were helped. Teachers were grateful. So were their parents. So was the community. I could go on and on about what Wyandotte Center does and how it helps improve the community, but the reason you should trust their judgment on this, and this particular project, is because they've earned your trust. The bid went out to build this project with no money attached, and one of the commissioners said, wouldn't it be interesting, who's going to respond to this RFP with no money attached? The answer was Wyandotte Center and PACES did. Why? Because they care about these children, and then they enlisted me and several other volunteers to help them. I'm not going to run out of my time, so I'm going to stop. Please make note that a lawyer ended his time early.
The record will be duly noted. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Good evening. My name is John Cameron. I'm here with my wife Vicki tonight, 11223 West 64th Terrace, Shawnee. My wife and I have owned property along Leavenworth Road for 15, 16 years now. We're members of the Leavenworth Road Association and have a growing involvement with youth in Wyandotte County. We're here in support of this application. I have a letter that I've written that I can submit and would ask that it be part of the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are some tough acts to follow tonight, so I will go with my best asset, which is brevity. So I'm clearly not an attorney. My name is Adam Ellert. I operate a business in the community at 1800 Village West Parkway. And I simply would like to state my support for the project because unfortunately there is a need, and I'm afraid there will always be a need in this community and any community. I'm tremendously thankful that there is an organization like PACES and the entire Wyandotte Inc. Umbrella of organizations to fill this need and to do so passionately and compassionately and expertly. They are all professionals and they know what they're doing. So I am thankful that they are able to fill that need in our community. And I'm also thankful for the impact that it will have not only today or tomorrow, but frankly 5 years or 10 years or 15 years from now, when these children who may need the help today or tomorrow or next month, when they have that help now and they're able to have a night or two of comfort in a safe place, I think that can really help them stem turning where they may prove more difficult 5 or 10 or 15 years ahead in our community. So I would offer my support and thank PACES for what they do.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matt Clune. My address is 1211 West 70th Terrace, Kansas City, Missouri. I too am a lawyer, and I too am part of the campaign committee led by Daryl and his wife Paige, which I am honored and privileged to serve on. You might ask, why is a Missouri guy so interested in this cause? And it is because it is the right thing to do. I get appointed sometimes on the Missouri side of the state line to represent mothers and fathers of children who are pulled out of their homes in these exact abuse and neglect situations. And so I can tell you from my own personal experience that it is a crucial need in a crisis situation. You would not believe the number of these kids who all they want is to go back to their mother. All they want is to go back to their father. All they want is to go back to that situation, which is so terrible for them. It's because that's the only home that they know. That's the only mother that they have. That's the only father they have. So PACES comes in and provides comfort in a situation where it truly is crisis for these kids. And to send these kids in that situation 3 hours to Wichita or several hours to other cities is terrible. And I just wanted to say that. We do have several other committee members here. I don't know if they want to stand, and just anybody else who wants to stand who's not going to speak, who is part of our committee and part of our support here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Bob Gunge of the Wyandotte County Sheriff's Office, and I have Mary Pollock here, who's the program manager for the Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center of the Wyandotte County Sheriff's Office. I'm here on behalf of Sheriff Ash tonight. He asked me to convey his apologies for not being able to attend this meeting due to a family event scheduling conflict. However, he wanted me to be sure to once again extend his personal and professional commitment to working collaboratively with all the stakeholders, and especially the neighborhood residents, to make the shelter successful and maintain or enhance the residents' quality of neighborhood living. Based on the feedback we've received regarding residents' concerns, we would like to offer the following information. Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center currently makes on average 1 trip per day to the shelter. With additional bed space proposed at the new shelter, that may increase slightly. Juvenile intake personnel transport children to and from the shelter in a plain soccer mom type van, a vehicle that blends in with the regular neighborhood traffic. Parents or extended family members pick their children up at juvenile intake, located in our sheriff's office, and not at the shelter. And there's about 5 or 6 kids per year that sees an opportunity to run from respite shelter care. They run because they want to go home, and our experience is that's where we ultimately find them. Currently, when respite care beds for children are at capacity, Juvenile intake personnel or other sheriff's personnel are required to transport these children as far away as Wichita, Salina, Junction City, and places in between to approved foster homes and shelter locations. The result is increased costs associated with assessment, investigation, and shelter care, and most importantly, adds another trauma to an already traumatized child. We want you to know that we have listened very carefully and taken these concerns to heart. Experience tells us that when we wait for perfect answers, the perfect time, the perfect location, and perfect unity, the world will have passed us by and we will not have improved anything. Working in collaboration as a caring community, we can do better than that. These are our children, and they depend on us to protect them and look after their best interests. I hear so many people talk about it takes a village to raise a child. I think that's certainly true when a family is in crisis and children are in need of extra care. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening, and I shall draw this narrative to a close with a quote from President Ronald Reagan. There are no easy answers, but there are simple answers. We must have the courage to do what we know is morally right. Subject to your questions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I'd just like to speak on behalf of the Police Department. We have been, at least Colonel Ziegler, Lieutenant Colonel Ziegler, has been on the planning of this facility from the very onset. He's gone to several meetings, and I'm speaking for him. We've been involved in helping PACES ease the concern of the neighbors, answer some of their questions, and at least try and let them know that we are actively involved in what is going on. I'd just like to say I personally support this initiative. I believe that our children are our future, and I just ask that you vote yes by showing that you're willing to invest in that healthy future for our young folks. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor at this time? Let the record show I see no one else speaking in favor. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Would you please come forward at this time?
Hi, my name is Susan Goebel. I live at 2521 North 61st Terrace. I'm on disability. Prior to being on disability, I was on the executive board for 2 terms at UAW 31. I served several terms with the Civil Rights Committee there, and I also worked on the Community Service Committee. I am for the Pace House. I am not for where it is located. Over the years, I have brought probably 40 kids into my own home personally and taken care of them. The only time I had one child that was trying to get away from a gang and he was murdered. But other than that, all the other kids turned out good. However, I have noticed kids walk by my house all the time, and they already know where this house is located. They know what it is. These kids, there was 4 teenage boys walking by, and they said this, I'm not going to use the words they used, but they were dirty words. These MFers are trying to put this effing building back here and F up our park. And they were hot about it. So therefore, just that alone makes me concerned for the safety of those children that will be staying there. Now, you cannot guarantee that there's not going to be some problem from the kids in the neighborhood, regardless of what other people say. I firmly believe in the PACE thing. I just think it's the wrong location. I think it would probably be better off since, well, he mentioned that if you have over 7 children, you have 10 children, you have to have 2 people there. Well, that only stands to reason. You know, if you go past the 7, you have to have another person. But what I personally feel is that it would be better off, since they said they're going to be keeping these children inside and not letting them out, maybe they would be better off by the river where not so many people knew where they were, down by Caw Valley, where they might be a little bit safer. I thoroughly support the PACE concept. What I do not support is where you're trying to put it. And on top of that, I have severe asthma. I'm afraid that if you start building back there, the dust from that is going to literally kill me. I cannot walk outside my door and stay out at my house, or in my yard rather, if somebody 2 doors down is smoking, because the smoke affects my lungs. If somebody is drying clothes, I can't be out in my yard because I can't breathe the fumes from that. I have to be totally scent free. And when you're going to talk about a project that size, you are basically, if you approve it, you are signing my death warrant. And I'm sorry, that's, like I said, I do support PACE, I just do not support the location. And I reserve the right to come back for rebuttal if that's all right.
I'm sorry, we do not offer rebuttal, but I appreciate your offer.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name's Orlando Washington. I live at 5949 Nogard. I'm the house that will be essentially next door to this establishment. I'm in agreement with Sue. I don't have anything against PACES. I just don't agree that it needs to be in the midst of a residential neighborhood. I think that it should be somewhere else. I'm relatively new to the neighborhood. I've been there 2.5 years, and I bought that house because I liked the location, and I was not aware that I was going to have to be soon living next door to a shelter home. I know kids need help. I'm all for kids getting help. I just don't think it needs to be where they're trying to put it. The gentleman spoke about they want to build a home for these kids. Well, that's not going to be a home because those kids will not be living there. That's just a house. Essentially, it's no different from being in a motel for a weekend or a couple of days. It's no different. That's not a home for these kids. It's just a temporary holding place. I think that their intentions or what attracted them to this place is that they're looking for some place that's kind of off the beaten path or unseen. But I don't know if any of you are visited where they're trying to place this facility. That park generates a great deal of traffic. There's always rentals on the weekends, and it's a couple blocks from Oswego High School, and those kids hang out in that park quite often, if not just for a place to hang out. It's a lot of stuff, undesirable stuff that goes on in that park as well. And I don't feel as though putting this there is going to be helping the kids that they're saying that they're trying to help. I mean, the gentleman spoke about how the kids won't be outside. They'll be confined to the inside. Well, with all the activity that's going on around, I mean, kids are going to hear all these activity going on, and they're going to want to partake, especially if they're being held in this facility against their will. They're going to want to get out of there. I don't think this is going to add to the neighborhood in any way. I mean, everybody is going to know what it is. It's not a house like any other house in the neighborhood. It's going to be totally different. It's a shelter. That's what it is. It's a temporary holding facility. And I do believe anytime you have to take kids out of a home, those kids, you're going to that home because of negative reasons, and those kids are probably coming with emotional baggage or whatever it may be. I mean, they're troubled children or teenagers, and I particularly don't want to live next door to one. I'm not saying that they don't need help.
You have 1 minute, sir.
I believe they need help, but I don't agree that it needs to be in the midst of our neighborhood. I think there's plenty other places in Wyandotte County where they could locate.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
Hi, my name's Susan Poole. I'm at 2531 North 61st Terrace. Mine will be short and sweet. I would like to say also, there's construction going on down there already, and I know they're not fixing the street, so obviously there's already plans and set. So I feel like I'm not getting anywhere making a vote in the first place, but here it goes. I have nothing against the Pace Building either, and, or children getting help, but just the location is what we're trying to say. I know there's several other more locations. If we can find places for commercial buildings, we can find places for safe for children. Simple.
I would like to set the record straight. There is no construction currently going on the site. Is that correct?
I have not been there since Planning Commission, but I was not aware of any of the Paces folks that have to speak to that. There's no permit been issued.
There's no work that's been begun on the site. If there were work that was being done on the site, that would be against the law. There's no work. Is there any work that's being done? No.
Knowledge there is no work on behalf of this project being on that property at all. We have not yet signed the papers for the property at all.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition?
I'm Johnny Mae Freeman. I live at 2503 North 59 Terrace. If they want to put a Pace somewhere, there's Meadowlark Lane across Parallel all the way to State Avenue. Y'all want to drive to Wichita or Salina? Go out on Parallel. Go out on Leavenworth Road all the way to 7 Highway. There's plenty of room out there. I'm against it putting it in that neighborhood.
Thank you. Please do not clap. We have a decorum that we like to uphold in our meetings. Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak at this time?
My name is Georgia Brown. I live at 2517 North 59th Terrace, and we have been homeowners there for 20 years. And in fact, we have no complaints about the PACES program whatsoever. Again, it's just the location. There's the park that's there that many of us frequent. Many of us take our grandkids there or our children there and have picnics there. If we're not, somebody is always there at the park. That would diminish when the Pace House is like put there. And I'm also not sure that I believe that nothing else would be added on unto this facility later on. In the agenda here, it said recommended for 2 years, okay? So at the end of that 2 years, is another structure gonna be built, another one, whatever? That is not the location for it to be. Again, they say that our taxes will not go down, that would not affect our property. I don't believe that either, okay? And I'm just not very happy whatsoever. Neither are my neighbors that cannot walk or even be here on today that I have talked to. We are not pleased with that. We are pleased with PACES, but just not the location, with the park and how it would make our neighborhood feel and how we will respond to that. Like the kids from Slagle, they already know what's going to be there. So it's no longer a secret. They already know. And that in itself is a problem for us. And we just want to stick together as a neighborhood to protect our homes, to protect our property, and to make sure that the park stays open and that we don't have to worry about these sort of incidents occurring again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Herbert Harris, and I live at 2427 North 59th Street. I've lived out there for 40 years, and we've seen a lot of stuff that's tried to come into our neighborhood that we're just keep on seeing stuff that people want to put in our front door, or our back door. And it's just like everyone else is saying, we don't have anything against Pace, but why do you want to put it in our backyard? Also, we have a petition with about over 36 names on it that we'd like to give to you. That's against this pace being put out there in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Luna, and I'm here for Antonia Luna and Ignacio Luna. They own 2 properties on Nogard Avenue, 5945, which is their residence, and 5937, 5939, which is a duplex. They first bought the duplex, and they liked so much the area that they, when the house next door went on sale, they went and buy it because they just like the neighborhood a lot. They've been on there for 12 to 13 years now. And personally, they do watch my kids. I do have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old kids and a brand new baby. And this is just about being safe. We wouldn't be feeling so safe with that house being there. We do agree, and we are in favor of Paces. We're just not in favor of where they wanted to build it. We do feel that there's a lot of other places in Wyandotte County where they can look and they can build there without affecting our neighborhood. We did talk to a real estate agent, and they said it would affect the resale value of it. You guys, they had said that maybe not the property tax, but it would affect the resale value of it. And like they were saying earlier, people already know where this is going to be. And on one of the meetings, they said they wanted to be to like an excluded house, like nobody knows where's it at. They already know, so they might want to look into another location to make it. And most people that have voted in favor of it, they do not live there, except for a few. So we do live there. We're there every day. My kids play in that park every day. So bring them that. I mean, these kids that are going to be in this house, which, like somebody said, it's not a home, it's a house. They're there for none of their fault or that, but these kids are being exposed to violence already. So I'm not saying that it's never going to happen with this being there, but why risk our kids if it's not there already? So these kids, they're not little criminals, but they're being exposed to violence already. So we just don't, we agree with the program, we just don't want it there. It's just, we just don't want it there. We have our kids playing there every day in that park. They love that park. And for them not to let them go because other kids because of what could happen. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
Hi, my name is Ana Loza, and I live on 5940 Cleveland Avenue. So the building could be right in the back of my house. I have 2 kids that right now I can take to the park. And I asked you guys if you think when the shelter is there, I'm going to be able to keep taking them to the park. So yeah, like they said, I'm not against Paces. I have seen them working, and I think they are a good company. But I don't think that's the right place for them to be. There's people, regular people, normal people that live there, and I think we need to live in a safe environment for our kids.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? I would offer the same opportunity that was...
I would like to say something else.
I'm sorry, ma'am, your time is up, but we appreciate that. I would ask that we had the opportunity was given by one of the speakers for those who did not wish to speak, who were in favor to stand, and they did that. If there are others here who did not choose to speak but are in opposition, if you would like to stand so we can recognize you at this time, please stand. Thank you. All right, we will now close the public hearing. We've had opportunity for people both in favor and in opposition to speak. I will now turn it over to the commission. Commissioner Philbrook.
So I'm very sad. Sad because we live in a place that we're so worried that if we help somebody else, that we're going to be injured. And especially with our police and our sheriff coming right in behind and saying, we're going to stand with you and make sure that this doesn't happen. But I live close by an area that is rather difficult myself, and I've had a lot of things going on around my place. But Paces could go in my backyard, but I don't think it would fit. Okay? I would like to have them there, then I know that nobody be coming around because of the police being there and because of their vigilant watch. I'm stepping out on the skinny branches here, folks. I am for Paces being there. I can't help it. I can't deal with not in my backyard when I'm convinced that it's not dangerous. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that with this situation, I'm torn in between the two as well. I think when young people are taken from the home for their safety, I think that they should have a safe place to go. And I think it shouldn't have to be in Wichita or Topeka or outside of the city. I also believe that if there was a facility built and there was 5 to 10 kids there that frequent the facility weekend, 3 days, whatever be the case, I do not think that it would create a safety barrier for people who go to the park. I do not think that it would be an issue for students who walk from Sligo, because I say that because this is Wyandotte County. We have kids who are elements. You know, we have kids that are rough cuts, period. And I don't think that that would be an issue, but I do also understand citizens who reside in a neighborhood, who live there 24/7, who bought homes when the facility was not there. And they have spoke and said what they do not want in their neighborhood. They pay taxes. They bought their homes there. And it leaves me stuck in between the two because we represent everybody across this city, the children, as well as the residents. And I really believe that with all of the locations in Wyandotte County, I think there can be a possible place to put it. But then I also believe that the residents have that right to speak up and say what they do not want in their neighborhood. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. This issue came before the Economic Development Committee several months ago. I sit on that committee, and I had not heard of Paces before. My first concern was for the homeowners in the area and what that would mean to their property values, and what it would mean to the look of the neighborhood. From the presentation that was made at that time, I voted to move this on. I was told that outreach had been made to the neighbors and there was really no concern, so I was taken aback to see the number of people who have come out tonight. However, the concerns that have been expressed by the neighbors are troubling to me in that it sounds as though there's some misunderstanding, just what I'm hearing, between the children who will be in this home who are children in need of care, not children who have been charged with some felony or misdemeanor. to me, the presentation is still about a home that is going to be constructed, or a house. I understand that not all, structures are homes, but it's the attempt of PACE to provide a home-like environment as closely as possible for children who apparently have been traumatized. These children, I would not think, are interested in trying to go to a park or be seen, but to blend in as this structure seems to be designed to do. It sounds to me like there's more problem with kids who are already there and maybe in the park. Maybe there needs to be more attention paid to the activities already going on in the park or walking by. It doesn't sound to me as though these children in need of care, who would be temporary residents, would be interested in trying to go out. They may want to go back home. That's mom and dad or whoever, auntie, grandma, whoever. It may not be the safe place for them. But it doesn't sound like the kids who would be housed there temporarily would want to do anything but blend in or be cared for. And it doesn't sound like the structure is going to be one that would stand out. I am very sensitive to these homeowner issues. I've had one since I've been on here. The difference was that proposal was totally out of character for the environment in which it was. One of the gentlemen from the sheriff's office addressed a concern I had, well, not a concern, but a question I had about maintaining this anonymity and blending in. I wanted to know how children would be transported to and from the facility. Would they be brought or taken there in marked cars? And he addressed that issue for me tonight. So it sounds like this entire plan has been to blend in and not stand out. Kids at Slagle, knowing about where this is going to be, those kids are transitory. They're going to move on. So I don't see really the concern with them knowing. We're doing this in public. Everybody's going to know. But I think the issue is, could you drive down that street and based on the structure of that home or what's going on there, could you say, well, oh, that's this house? I'm not hearing that. I'm not seeing that that's the design. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of you may or may not know, but I lived in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house with my 9 brothers and sisters. Nice, tight little place. And we made it. And we're here to represent everyone. And there's several of us, if not all of us, here are always concerned about our kids. The mayor and I went up to Platte City yesterday to look at the YMCA for a place for our kids to go. We built one while they were here. But if you have to take a kid and take them to Wichita, where do they run away? They don't run. There's nowhere to go. And these decisions that we make are hard because somebody's going to get mad one way or the other. And then you guys are going to look and say, well, they did it to us. Well, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to turn my back on kids that we don't even know who they are that need help. If we don't take care of our future, who is? And some of these kids, all they need is a chance. And you say you all support PACES? Well, I do as well. And they purchased the property. And I believe that that's a maybe not the best place to go, but that's a place that would work for the kids. And I think once everyone calms down and realizes the park's still going to be there, there's not going to be a whole lot of traffic, that things will settle down after the storm. And I know right now everybody's emotions are riding extremely high. But at the end of the day, we have to think about the kids.
Commissioner Walker.
The facts are compelling in favor of this project for me. It's not a difficult question. I move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Commissioner McKiernan.
Well, I was going to take it a different direction. Given the
number of comments that have been made, and I am concerned because we could make similar comments about any location we picked in the city. Any location would have a number of negatives that would suggest it's not the best place to put this or any other facility. So it is a matter of coming to compromise on this. But what I was going to ask was, if I know Mr. Kallstrom, you had said that you had investigated with Mr. Slaughter and done a search of the city in searching for sites that are available, and I was going to suggest that maybe as a possible compromise, even though you've already done one, we take a look again, and maybe some of us, I mean, your current facility is in my district, and glad to have you there. Maybe we can look and find an alternate location that meets all of your needs and yet does not get us into some of these concerns. Now, I don't know if there's a time urgency for this that, you know, but I offer that as a possible alternative that maybe some of us could help investigate the possibility of an alternate location. If we don't find one, then we come right back here.
I will take that as a speech against the motion for approval. I'd like to speak in favor of the motion for approval, and I'll just say a few words about why this is close to my heart. When I was working my way through seminary, I worked at a group home for children. I worked at a group home for juvenile offenders. I also worked at a group home later for children in need of care who were removed from their home. It was at the later group home. My current wife is also the staff there. She and I met there, and having kids and caring for kids has been a part of our life ever since. We have been foster parents, licensed foster parents in Wyandotte County. We did emergency respite care for a number of cases for children in need of care. Welcomed these children not into our backyard but into our home when they were in crisis. And we did temporary care. We also did long-term foster care. I'm also an adoptive parent. I also worked as a police chaplain for 4 years and was called to scenes when kids were in crisis and had to be removed from the home. And if you have not been in the living room when children are being separated from their alcoholic, drunk out of their mind, passed out father on the couch, you have no idea the pain these children are going through. I've been there, I've seen it firsthand. These children need a home, they need to be cared for, it needs to be a home setting, and these kids need to be in a neighborhood. I also will say that this issue recently came to my neighborhood. I live in Normandy West, and the Oxford House bought a home and converted it into a group home for women who are recovering from alcohol and drug addiction, who have numerous criminal background issues, some of them, and some of them are court-ordered into treatment. Some of that includes a group home for women. As we did our research in our neighborhood, because there was a similar outcry in our neighborhood when a group home came in, we're not zoned for that, it's not licensed for that, it's a commercial facility, it's a group home, it's rental, it's all the things that are contrary to our codes. We talked to legal, we got a legal opinion. The end of the day, the group home came in, and as we did our research, we found that there were a lot more complaints about women group homes than there were about men group homes, because the women group homes brought children, and the men group homes did not. And it is true, this Oxford home has been in our neighborhood for 2 years now, and there are a lot of children there. I have children who are 8, 9, 13, and 16, and my children play on the same street with the children in the group home. Just yesterday I was driving to church and it was raining, and one of the mothers was walking to Kmart with her son. I gave him a ride, visited with them on their way. It does take a village, and we need to welcome these kids in crisis into our homes and into our neighborhoods. And I know the emotional uproar, I experienced it myself. I'm the former president of my neighborhood association. And of course, when you're the mayor and there's an issue in the neighborhood, you're the first house they knock on. And after we got through the emotional issue and worked through all the layers, the bottom line, there's people who need to be cared for. They need a neighborhood and they need a home. And not only do I support this home and this location, Because if it's not your neighborhood, I'm going to support this home in someone else's neighborhood. I would support this home in my own neighborhood. And I would support this home because we need to commend these children to your care. We need to commend these children who are in crisis, these Wyandotte County children, to a neighborhood that is loving and caring, who is compassionate, who has children or has raised children. I hope these children don't stay inside. I hope they get to play in that park. I hope these kids ride their bicycles up and down the street. I hope these kids have as normal as 72 hours at the worst moment in their life that they possibly can. And I hope as the emotions die down and as this project moves forward, that everyone will rally around and say, you know what, we didn't ask for this, but I believe there's a calling, and I hope the neighborhood will rally to support these kids in their time of crisis, welcome them with open arms, wave to them as they drive by, and let them know that their time of crisis is being met with compassionate people in Wyandotte County. I do not like sending our urban kids to rural areas. It's a very foreign environment for them. I want our kids in our city. And as a respite home for foster care, current respite home for foster care, I appreciate the value of having kids in an environment that is as familiar as possible until they can find a permanent placement. Friends, we have too many kids that need care. And while it's hard at first when it's in your neighborhood, I hope you will answer this calling and you will be as welcoming to these children as you would your own, because they need your care more than ever. Thank you. Commissioner Murguia?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering if Mr. Kallstrom could reapproach so I could ask a couple of questions. Do you mind?
No. There is a motion and a second on the floor, but Commissioner, I will, if Mr. Kallstrom, if you would come forward to answer a few questions.
So thank you very much, Mr. Kallstrom. And I've talked to you a little bit about this project. I happen to be very familiar with this project because it's been going on for several years. And I just had a couple of questions for you. And we started to have this conversation. We never got to finish it. I apologize for that. So I guess my question is, if you could have any location anywhere, what would that location look like for the type of service in the care you're trying to provide for these children? What would be the very best, most ideal location?
In a make-believe world or in this community?
Well, in this community,
With all due respect, Commissioner, I apologize.
I think it's a pretty great community. So right here in this community.
So, you know, it's really an excellent question. Pardon my humor.
Okay.
You know, as I said, and as Mayor Holland articulately said, these children are in the worst time of their life. And they need a place that doesn't look like a hospital or an institution. It needs to look like a home. So first of all, that's what it needs to look like in my view. Secondly, as far as the location goes, it really does need to be in close proximity to the community. The kids don't need to be driving across the city or across the state. It needs to be a short drive. It needs to be in a neighborhood that will accommodate a structure large enough for this type of home. It needs to be close access for the juvenile intake staff and the social workers as they are conducting their business. And again, we did look. I've been looking for 2 years for a site. There was another site in the Argentine area that we looked at, and it simply did not work out for cost reasons, and funders flat out told us they wouldn't put their money in that. This has been a long journey, and we have a long ways to go. But these are our kids, and that's why we're doing it.
So when you said access to social workers, for example, would the most ideal location be in the 635 corridor, further west or further east? I'm really just talking business here. I'm not talking about the emotional side of
I
caring
understand.
for needy children.
I apologize.
All right.
One of our priorities was to look close as possible to the juvenile intake center, which is located just right down the road. Access for the juvenile intake staff was a critical component in our thinking, so we were looking the east side of 59th Street, 78th Street on east. And part of that was really to accommodate the needs of the juvenile intake staff. And they have limited staff, and we wanted to limit the amount of drive time away from their other duties.
So the most ideal location would be as close as you could possibly be to the juvenile intake center. Sorry, what?
The one we have now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mayor. You may have noticed that when you called on me earlier, I hesitated. With a motion and a second on the floor, I hesitated to say what I said, even though I ended up saying it. Please do not interpret my statement as a statement against the motion.
Duly noted. Thank you,
Call for the
Commissioner.
question.
Your timing is impeccable. There's no other lights lit. No other comments now. Roll call.
Roll call, Mukia. Maddox.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion passed.
Thank you. Okay, that I would ask everyone to we have just a moment before we go. I would like to recognize another elected official in the room today. Marianne Flunder from the Kansas City, Kansas Community College Board of Directors is here. We appreciate your presence here tonight. Also, under announcements, we have slated for April 10th a discussion about charter and ethics. And Commissioner Murguia, I need to ask you specifically, you had requested this to be put on the calendar. It's on the calendar for April 10th. I received a notification that you're not going to be here April 10th. So I just want to confirm that because since you requested it, I want to make sure it's on a time that accommodates your schedule.
Thank you very much, Mayor. April 10th, and it's on the commission calendar for April 10th, you said?
Yes.
And you did receive a notification that I wasn't going to be there. That's changed. I'll be there.
All right, excellent. We will maintain our calendar as stated. The Charter and Ethics conversation will be at our next meeting at 5 o'clock special session, April 10th. That concludes all the items before us. We are adjourned. Some days.